everybody, it's Queen of Light 1111 and welcome back to Step Into the Light with Queen of Light
and Sunaina.
Well, welcome back. Today we have a very special podcast on forgiveness. That is a very difficult topic, right, Sunaina?
Yeah, a lot of people struggle with forgiveness, including myself.
I know, a lot of us, including myself too. Forgiveness is very difficult, and what we all need to realize is that forgiveness, first and foremost, is always for yourself. What we want to do today is we want to talk about what forgiveness is, what it isn't, and why it's important to forgive. So let's get started. So forgiveness, what isn't forgiveness? Okay, forgiveness isn't forgetting what happened. A lot of times people think, okay, you can just forgive and then forget. That is impossible. You can't forgive and forget. We are humans with very, very complex minds, and we hold on to trauma, right? We hold on to the things that happened to us. So forgiveness is not necessarily forgiving to forget. You don't have to forget what happened. The second thing forgiveness is not implying that the pain or the hurt or the sadness that was caused to you is no big deal. Because obviously it was a big deal, which is why we continue to hold on to unforgiveness, right?
Right.
And then the last thing, what forgiveness is not, is it's not assuming that you're automatically going to be able to go back and resume a relationship with that person from the place that you had it before. So it's not about forgetting. It's not about implying it wasn't a big deal. And it's not about resuming and going back to the same place with that person from where you came from. So what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is simple, right? And have you noticed that the most simple things are most often the hardest things to do?
That's very true.
So what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is simple in the meaning of letting go of the anger or the hurt or that desire for vengeance even, right? That we have against that person. So forgiveness is for you. It's these things, these emotions that you are carrying within yourself, anger, hurt, vengeance. It reminds me of that saying. It's something like, when your anger is like drinking poison. Have you heard of this?
Right.
Drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Wow, I love that.
Right? It's like, I think Buddha said it. I'm not sure. But I remember seeing that as I was growing up and even as an adult, and I was thinking, wow, it's really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about anger, hurt, vengeance, the things that you have within yourself, it creates a lot of bitterness. It creates a lot of anger. It creates a lot of, lower vibrations. So think about when you're angry or hurt, Sunaina, like how do you get into the place of trying to forgive?
I was just going to say, I like that you said forgive, but don't forget. Because one thing that I like to do is, if I feel like someone did me wrong, one thing I like to do to kind of start to forgive them is I like to think about what I learned from the negative experience that I had with them. And from that, I'm kind of healing myself, and I'm like, this happened for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I learned this from it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can move on from that with that lesson. So
Exactly.
I'm turning it into a positive thing.
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. 100%. We can stop the podcast here. But that's so true, because it's not about forgetting what happened.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite. It's about bringing the lesson.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so true. That's it. Like that's the secret sauce. Is about forgiveness.
Totally.
Is about really going into the understanding from the hawk side. From that like higher self perspective.
Exactly.
Which, if you think about your higher self doesn't have this negative and positive experience. It has an experience, right? And so when you look at it without the emotional attachment, then you get into the real spirit of why something happened.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what you're talking about, which is taking the lesson. That's beautiful.
I love
That's
it.
perfect. So why do it? Why forgive?
For yourself.
Exactly. Why forgive? For yourself.
You don't-
Because
you
how
don't
does it help
forgive-
you when you forgive yourself?
It helps you heal within yourself. It helps you heal your own trauma.
Mm-hmm.
You don't forgive for the sake of the person that you're forgiving. You forgive so that you can move on.
It's hard though. It's really hard.
Oh my god, it's the hardest thing
As a
ever.
human, right? Like we're all humans, right? We duh. But it's just like forgiveness is in that energy where it's such an easy thing to conceptualize, but it's a very difficult thing to execute.
Yes.
And so when you're thinking about forgiveness, the first thing you have to do is consciously make the decision that you are going to forgive.
Right.
Number one, you have to make the decision that you are going to forgive. Number two, that forgiveness, once you make the decision, is exactly what you said, Sunana. It's about taking the lesson, looking
Nice.
at the higher perspective.
Yes.
And then taking the lesson with you. And then now you're in one, you've made the decision. Two, you're taking the lesson. Then what happens? Three, you start to abandon and release this pain and this bitterness and this aggression and this vengeance that some people may have, right? Because if you
Yeah.
think about a lot of our viewers or listeners, they've experienced betrayal. They've experienced backstabbing. They've experienced, people doing bad things to them. And they're all on this spiritual journey saying, hey, I'm a really good person. Why did this happen to me?
Yeah.
And it becomes a little bit of,
Woe is me.
yeah, a little, and I hate to use the word victimization, but because initially it's not victimization.
Right.
Initially, something bad happened to you.
Right.
But when you continue to sit in it, then it's woe is me. Then it's
Right.
victimization.
Mm-hmm.
So this, 1, 2, 3, is taking your power back. 1 is making the decision, right? 2 is taking the lesson. 3 is releasing that so that you no longer are a victim, but you're in your power. Because
Exactly.
remember, the forgiveness is for you. So what happens, even physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, when you release this energy? What happens to you?
You're gonna feel so much lighter.
Exactly.
You're gonna feel relieved.
Exactly. Not only mentally and emotionally will you feel lighter and relieved, but physically
Mhm.
and spiritually you will feel that release as well.
Right.
Because a lot of it happens under the surface in the subconscious, right? So when you think
Yeah.
about when you're you're dreaming about it, you have anxiety over it. It starts to seep into your other relationships even where
Yes.
you're taking the burden and the pain from this person who did you wrong. And as you're connecting with a family member or a friend, your temper can get short. You can be very, very sensitive to things that you wouldn't normally be sensitive about. So what happens is it improves your relationships too as you release those things.
Totally.
Right? You're also getting rid of things that are triggering anxiety because you're really in this, it's almost like a ticking time bomb, right? When you're in this period of pain and sorrow and sadness and why and this hurts and he's living his life or she's living her best life and I'm sitting here in pain, right?
Yeah.
It's just like it makes you more sensitive and you start like tick, 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 tick until one day, if you don't let it go and release it, people flip, right?
Yeah.
So forgiveness, not only are you saying that it has mental and emotional benefits, it also has
Totally.
subconscious, spiritual, and emotional benefits. I think that's very important. The other thing that we want to talk about today about forgiveness is if you're going to do it authentically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because that is essential. That's number 4.
Yes.
Make sure that when you're going to forgive, you're not doing it because, I listened to a podcast and it told me that I should. Or my coach told me that I should do it. Or the healer said I should release it. Or my tarot reading said I should do this. And by the way, if anybody wants a reading coaching session or a healing session, go to queenoflight1111.com. Don't do it because somebody tells you to do it. You will do this the right way and complete this exercise and this energy when you are ready. So do it when you're ready and do it authentically. If that's one thing that I teach that everybody takes away from my teachings and from my lessons and from my videos is be your most authentic self. If you fake it, I know, fake it to make it, right? I hear it all the time, but not with forgiveness.
No.
You really can.
And it's not something that's just going to happen overnight either. It takes
It's
practice.
Exactly. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because you might have to repeat steps 1, 2, 3, 4 many, many times.
Yeah.
Even throughout the day. You might be
Totally.
like, okay, I'm going to forgive. And you decide in the morning and you authentically do it. By the afternoon, you're thinking, you know what? I'm really pissed off again.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to start all over again.
Uh-huh.
Make the choice again until that choice becomes daily, until that choice becomes weekly, until that choice all of a sudden is just ingrained and you've completely forgiven. So it takes time, it takes patience, it takes you being authentic. So we hope that this podcast, while it was short and sweet, it is a very, very big topic to cover. But we always like to break things down like this into simple terms, because life is complicated enough. So go back and listen to this podcast again if you need help, if you need support. But forgiveness, first and foremost, starts with you, ends with you, and is for you. All right? Hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, and we'll be back again next week. Bye, everybody.